It's Saturday, September 27th. Recorded live from the English Valley's History Center. Here's Jackie.
Hello, my name is Jackie Geringer McDermott, and this is our 50th broadcast. I want to show you this book we got, Acquisition of the Week. It is the Rotary Club. It's their record book. It was donated by Dr. Gary Kolasic, and it's a very interesting book. We're going to take some pages out of it and read them to you over the next few weeks. It's very interesting. You might want to come see it. This diary was written by my great-great-aunt, Mary Elizabeth Claypool Wade, who was known as Libby Wade. She was 75 years old in July of 1950. And here's a picture of Aunt Lib with her son, Wayner Perky Wade, granddaughter Evelyn Wade, and great-granddaughter Suzanne Kurtz. I will read and talk about a few days in the diary and then switch to happenings around the History Center and featured stories. July 26, 1950. Nice this morning. Russell got up early and went out to Leo Wade's for a piece of hedge to repair his fishing pole. I'm trying to clean the floors. Slow work for me, shaking rugs, etc., but I got it done and I cooked dinner. After the dishes were done, I rested. Russell is Lib's youngest son, and she lives in his house with him. Russell drives a truck and does other odd jobs around at the home lumber company a half a block away. Leo Wade is a distant cousin and acquaintance of the family, the grandfather of current North English resident Randy Wade. Maud came. She told me that Mr. Carson was taken to the hospital last night about 9. Mary Newhouse had told me that he had gone. I don't know which hospital, perhaps Sigourney. Doctor said pneumonia, she heard. Russell ate dinner and went for an arthritis shot. Maud said that Layton's will have to move. Someone from Atlantic bought the place. Too bad, for they had been allowed to think that they would be there for some time and have done so much extra work on the place. Maud Foster Claypool is Lib's friend and married to her nephew, Ray Claypool. Wilbur Carson is the neighbor across the street whose wife is battling cancer. Mr. Carson owns the clothing store uptown. And in this picture I'm going to show you, Mr. Carson's on the left and his first wife is on the right, and the house they lived in, which we called Jean Kaufman's house because she was the owner after them. Layton, or Happy Claypool, is Lib's nephew, son of her late brother, Verner Claypool. And Layton is third from the left in this picture. Mildred came down with her brother Bud. She brought some chicken and some corn. Russell is to go to the study group tonight at the church, invited by P.W. I read Reader's Digest a while. Mildred Reese is Russell's longtime girlfriend. And her brother is Harold, or Bud Reese, who was the husband of Doris Roller Reese, who was our junior high social studies teacher. Jenny and Evelyn and Kathy came. Brought an ice cream cone for me, and they had some too. Had been to Hazel's today. Went to pick blackberries, but the wild ones are not ripe yet. Heard that Mr. Carson is in an oxygen tent, and that his daughter, Mady Mahana, was sent for. Evelyn Wade Kurtz is Jenny's daughter. And Kathy Kurtz is Evelyn's daughter. They likely got the ice cream at the Locker building a half a block away. Warm this morning, July 27th, 1950. Showers predicted. Evelyn said last night that Anna wrote that they expected to come in 2 or 3 weeks. Would be nice if they're here for the creamery picnic. Anna, who is Lib's only daughter, lives with her husband Richard Cray and family in Texas. Carrie called up to say that Mary was better yesterday and was eating some. Drank milk when they were there. Is interested in her home and friends. Jenny came up for some small jars to put jelly and jam in. She brought me a glass of jam, rhubarb and raspberry. Mary Ann stopped in. She had heard about the amount each is to pay for spraying the town. Some think it's too much, but if we could keep the polio down, it would be very cheap at that, I think. Carrie Wade was calling about Mary Wade Regseger, age 72, who has been in the hospital with a very serious illness. Mary is the young girl in this photo. Here is a bit of information about spraying for polio, which was a much feared disease in 1950. In 1955, after years of research and testing, the polio vaccine created by Jonas Salk was declared safe and effective. Devastating virus is nearly eradicated in the United States today. In 1946, however, 2 years before Jonas Salk first began his research, the city of San Antonio, Texas, tried to prevent the spread of a polio outbreak by dousing the city with DDT. Apparently in a misguided effort to kill insects they believe carry the disease. Most people today know that spraying DDT will not prevent polio and can actually harm one's health. Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, in 1962, exposed the hazards of commonly used pesticide, and the chemical was mostly banned in the 1970s. Received a letter from Betty Bishop today. She said that Dale is in the Navy again. Went July 24th. She and the baby are going to California in about 2 weeks to live with her father at Oakland, California. She said the baby is growing nicely and looks like Dale. Dale Bishop was a neighbor in the past and was a good friend of Russell. I sat on the porch a while. Mrs. Halls called and said they called Dr. Miller for Mrs. Carson this p.m. Maud was in, went on up to Edith's. Russell went away after supper. I am alone and wrote to Betty Bishop and to Mary Carter at Longview, Washington. Big ball game at the park tonight. Edith Halls is another neighbor. Mrs. Carson is battling a very bad cancer. Maud is headed uptown to get her hair done at Edith's salon. Mary Carter from Longview, Washington was a childhood friend from the Yankee Point area and was married to William Carter, who was adopted into the Carter family. July 28th, 1950. Warm and nice. Russell went out to the ranch early this morning for a piece of wood for his fishing rod repair. He came back for breakfast. Expects to go to Cedar Rapids today. Mary Ann stopped at the door. She hadn't heard from the sick neighbors. Mrs. Agnew's daughter, Mrs. Kerr, has a new baby, cesarean, at the Williamsburg Hospital. Is getting along all right. Ruth Wetherell McCarter is over across the way. I expect she is wallpapering upstairs. Flossie was over there this morning. I heard that Mr. Carson is better and was coming home. Then they will get a nurse to come and take care of them. The ranch is Maple Crest Ranch out south of town, where Russell went looking for a special piece of wood to fix his fishing rod. Minnie Agnew is Lib's neighbor to the east. Ruth McCarter is the 29-year-old wife of Wayne McCarter, and her job was wallpapering and painting the walls in houses, a job that she continued for 48 years of her life. Flossie Claypool West is the granddaughter of Lib's cousin Wallace Claypool, and she lives in a rented room across the street with her daughter Barbara. And in this picture, Flossie is on the left, and she's with the group of telephone operators from North English in the 1950s. Elsie Miller was here a while. She is getting ready for WSCS, calling on some who have not attended lately. Mrs. Lacey was one. Mrs. Bolts came up. She had been cleaning, but Mrs. Huff helped wash windows, etc. Elsie Miller was an acquaintance of Lib's from her years of teaching out at Green Valley, east of town. WSCS is a women's Methodist group. Elizabeth, or Lizzie Geiger Bolts, is Lib's 87-year-old neighbor, and Mrs. Huff has been helping her clean. And here's a picture of Mrs. Huff when she was young. The town was sprayed this evening to kill flies and mosquitoes. I'm sure they got a good many. I could sit on the porch tonight. I received a letter from Anna. They don't think they can come up this year. Arlen is very likely to get called into the service. Aunt Hattie Hartwell in Canada died last week. She contracted typhoid last year while in Mexico and never fully recovered from it, and she also had heart trouble. Arlen that they're talking about is Lib's middle grandson in Texas, Arlen Cray. And Hattie Hartwell from Canada is the aunt of Anna's husband, Richard Cray. Jenny was up this evening. They picked blackberries today and brought some tomatoes. July 29th, 1950. Warm today. Showers predicted. I talked to Jenny. She knew about Mr. Cray's sister's death. Thought I did too. Neva talked to her about it Tuesday night. Mr. Cray and his brother went to Canada. Richard Cray's father, John Cray, lives in Kinross, and his son Wilbur has a wife named Neva, who was the mother of Dorothy Blount and Johnette Hudson. Neva later married Lloyd Burdine and lived in a little green house on North Boland Avenue in North English. Jenny is going this p.m. to Des Moines with Mildred. She is taking Shirley and Teddy to start on a trip to Houston, Texas to visit Betty and her sister. Mildred Cox, the wife of Clifford Cox and the sister of Owen Voss, is who Jenny is talking about here. Mildred Cox's children were Shirley, Bill, Ted, and Betty. Mrs. Agnew said her daughter, who has the new baby, has a temperature last evening. She was going to Williamsburg to see her today. Churchill's got some new furniture, a couch and a chair and some other things. Sent their old ones away. They brought Joanne's baby over for me to see. He is a nice little boy, Johnny, 3 months and 1 week old. Lowell and Henrietta Churchill lived directly across the street north from Lib. Their only daughter was Joanne, who was married to Larry Harris, and their baby is John Harris, who was in the class of 1968. Just recently, Joanne and Larry lived in that same house until they went to assisted living. And in this picture, Lowell is the second from the right in the back row. And this picture is John Harris from the class of 1968. Jenny brought up some beef and dumplings. I had dinner ready, and we ate some of them too. Tracy Wallace was here in the PM, had been to town to do her Saturday shopping. This is Appreciation Day at Williamsburg, a good time for all, free. Tracy Wallace was my paternal grandmother. She's the second one from the left in this picture. She likely walked uptown and then stopped at Lib's house on her way back to East Washington Street or Smoky Row. Mrs. Bolt stopped a while, had visited Eunice Lown today. She heard that Mrs. Bencini had another stroke this morning and is quite bad off. She had one several years ago when she was papering for Ina McKinstry. Bertha Dahl Stoner came for water to make iced tea. Her well water is not fit to use. She is helping at Carson's. Mr. Carson is still in the Sigourney Hospital. Mrs. Carson is fair, but limbs swell up when she is up. Ethel said Mary R. is better and able to sit up some. Lib had a fair amount of company today, telling her the news of her neighbors. Ethel McCarter was in her 20s, and her husband works for Lib's son Wayne in his trucking business. And of course, Lizzie Geiger Bowles is 87 years old and her neighbor. July 30th, 1950. This was Ermilda's birthday, 1894. She died April 25th, 1930. It doesn't seem that long ago, but time slips by very fast. This will be another hot day. Yesterday was the hottest day of the year yet. Evelyn and Kathy were up last evening a while. She had Belva's children with her while Belva went to the doctor for a shot. Ermilda Mall is Lib's niece, the daughter of Lib's sister, Sarah Myrtle Mall. Myrtle herself was diabetic, and several of her children had the same disease and died at a young age. Uh-oh. I've put my pictures on scan. I don't know how to make stop it. Okay, we'll go to restart, and then I'll go through them again. Well, we're going to have a few technical glitches here, folks. Let me go through my pictures again and get back to the right one. I went to the automatic, and we don't need that. Russell has gone again to Skunk. Virgil Hahn and Dean Thomas are going with him. The guys were going to fish on the Skunk River. Oh, shoot. It's still doing this. I don't know how to get it to stop. It's flipping my pictures. Well, how do I get it to stop? Play or pause? Okay, back. Back. Forward, 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 forward. Okay, I'll get it figured out. It's all going to have a little bit of a learning curve with it. Okay. This is Virgil Hahn that went fishing with the guys this morning. And in this one, Dean Thomas is the fifth person from the left. We called him Barney. Mrs. Bolts came this far and then rode to church with Mrs. Elsie King. Harold and Barbara were here a while. They came back and I went down to Wayne's with them. Then they went on home. Jimmy Bringman is visiting Jenny and the rest for a few days. He is 15. Harold Wade is in this picture with his sister Hazel Cobb. He is Lib's married grandson. And Barbara is his daughter, and she's in this picture with her great-grandma Lib, standing in Perky and Jenny's front yard. Mr. Cray came in the PM. He had been here and no one was at home. He had been to Canada to his sister's funeral a week ago. He thinks she was not buried. She said her wish was to be cremated, and he thinks that was done, but there was a funeral service, and they went to a cemetery, but they were dismissed and all left while the casket was still sitting there. Then they went out the next morning and found the ground had not been dug up. Cremation was much rarer in those days than it is now. I heard today that Glenn Gehringer's lost a premature baby girl. The first report was that Mamie had died, but that was a mistake. She is very bad, though, is in an oxygen tent, and has had blood. And here's a picture of July 31st, 1950. Had rain during the night, an awful black cloud in the north when we came home from Wayne's. I took the washing over to Lila, saw the car that was wrecked down by the hotel in the PM. Someone came around the corner too fast and smashed into Don Swink's parked car, then hit the front of Hanchett's truck. No one was hurt. Tracy called me this morning. Bertha got home last night. Maybe is better and may get along now. Her folks have the little boys. Bertha Claypool Gehringer is Lib's niece, my grandmother, and Mamie's mother-in-law. Mamie has 3 young boys who are staying with her parents. And here's a picture of my grandparents. Janet Cheney was here delivering bills for the theater. Her grandmother is very bad. Her throat is afflicted and swollen. Paralysis. Janet Cheney, from the North English class of 1956, is the teenage daughter of Walter or Dusty and Lavera Cheney, and she is delivering flyers that tell about the future movies for the movie theater up downtown. Janet later married David Wade and was the mayor of Keswick for a while. Her grandmother, Mrs. Ben Cheney, is very bad. And in this book right here, on the top row, right next to Winston Claypool, who's standing here, would be Janet Cheney.
You're famous, Winston.
Heard yesterday that Mary R. is a lot better. Is sitting up part of the time. Dick Johnson was here to get Russell's rubber boots. He had to go upstairs for them. After dinner, I had visitors. Maud came. They had a nice trip yesterday through the Amish neighborhood to Sharon. They visited Bruce Patterson's a while, back to Green Center, out to White's Bridge, and then home. Lib's other visitors this afternoon are Elsie Miller, Maddie Knipfer, Molly C., Mrs. Agnew, Trace McDonald, and Mary Newhouse. Maddie Knipfer was born Samantha Ballard, and she's in this Ballard picture on the right. And Molly C. is Molly Cheney Claypool, and she is married to the grandson of Lib's cousin Wallace Claypool, and she's also the sister-in-law of Mrs. Ben Cheney, who is in very bad shape. And right here is Molly with her young daughter Mary. And Trace McDonald, that's always coming to visit, is the mother of Wade McDonald, and here's her wedding picture. Molly had been over to her brother's. Mrs. Cheney was very bad. Heard later in the evening that she died about 5 o'clock. Flossie moved out to be with her mother, for a while anyway. Edith Brooks sat on the porch a while with me this evening. She saw Mary R. She is a lot better. Someone bought her chickens today. Millie was here, too, and brought tomatoes. And here's a picture of Millie Swope Knipfer, who is the grandmother of the Knipfers who live here now. That's the end of the diary portion for today. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes to keep the History Center operating. This includes cataloging of sessions, creating displays, coordinating and preparing for monthly programs, responding to requests for family and community histories, keeping up the social media, finances, cleaning, maintenance, and providing treats for programs. There's a whole lot more activity that supports the center's operations, and this is largely contributed to the time and effort of the board of directors and volunteers. The History Center board is composed of Dave Jackson, president, Scott Romine, vice president, Bonnie Romine, secretary, Don Banning, treasurer, and directors Carolyn Elwood, Shelley Gerard, Alan Ackerman, and Dan Best. Please send donations to the English Valley's History Center, P.O. Box 70, North English, Iowa 52316. This is a reminder that the next alumni luncheon group will meet at 11:30 a.m. at the Main Street Pub and Grub in North English on Monday, October 27th. Please contact Linda Holden Carter or Alice Floring Stramer for reservations. Our next program at the History Center will feature Phil Hester, our hometown comic book author, on Sunday, October 26th at 2 p.m. The program is entitled, Are You Still Making Those Cartoons? Our feature story today is about Smith Motor Company and Bob and Charlotte Smith. E.J. Smith and his wife Hannah and family moved to the North English area from LeClaire, Iowa in the 1850s. Smith Brick and Tile Company was established by the family, and they also sold coal. They had other brickyards in other towns too. And here is a picture of the Smith Brick and Tile Company about 1900. Their son, Omer Smith, who lived from 1962 to 1950, married Alice King. Omer was one of the first in the area to become interested in cars. And here's a picture of Omer. And here is another picture of Omer Smith taking the Sunday school class for a ride in his 1910 Mitchell automobile. Omer and his friend Clyde Post were also the ones who started the telephone company. In 1902, the original Smith Brothers garage was built and is still in the same location today. Here is a picture of E.J. Smith and Sons garage about 1919. And here is a picture of the Smith Motor Company. Smith Motor Company is probably the longest running business in Iowa County, with great-grandson Kevin Smith the owner now. Omer's son Merle Smith took over in 1928. His grandson Bob Smith and great-grandson Jim Smith were also owners. Omer and Alice's son Ward Russell Smith married Ann Dunn in 1914, but she passed away in 1918, leaving two young sons, Robert Russell, or Bob, and his brother Bruce, who were raised by Omer and Alice Smith and Uncle Merle Smith. Here is a picture of Ward Russell Smith with his two sons, Bob and Bruce. Bob spent much time at the garage and started working in the family business. Bob graduated in 1933, and his future wife, Charlotte Hotka, graduated in 1943. In 1945, Bob and Charlotte were married and moved into the Smith home. And here is a picture of Bob and his Uncle Merle Smith at the garage. And here are Charlotte and her two oldest girls, Louise and Bonnie, at the time of the North English Centennial in 1954. And this is the Bob Smith family. In back are David, Louise, Jim, and Bonnie. And in the front are And here is the picture of the car that Bob built for the Centennial in North English in 1954. And here is that same car that Kevin rebuilt for the North English 150-year celebration. Grandson Justin Smith drove it in the parade in 2004. And here is a picture of Bob that Ernie Dye snapped uptown one day. And here is a good one of Charlotte in her later years. And now for the rest of the story. Bob Smith was badly injured in a car wreck the year after he was married and lived the rest of his life without his arm, and he also limped. This did not stop his wonderful work ethic. He went to work each day to raise his family, and he was still at work at the garage when he passed away at the age of 70 in 1985. Charlotte was a very hard worker too. Bob and Charlotte saw to it that the children attended church and school and were well taken care of. Charlotte worked at the grocery stores at the corner of Main and Clark Street for years, and in later years she cooked at the school for 25 years. Teacher Ron Van Berkum remembers that he would always tease her about still being a sub when she was well past retirement age. He would say, "Well, it looks like they left the nursing home unlocked." I remember Bob Smith from when I worked in the cafe uptown. He would come several times a day for a cup of hot coffee, but always quickly drank the hot liquid and then hurried back to work. But he always had time for a friendly visit if someone wanted to talk. My younger friend, A.B. Fobert Tracta from Topeka, Kansas, remembers when she was a little girl and would come to Don and Jerry's Cafe when her mother was working. Bob Smith was a frequent customer and would give her quarters. She also remembers Bob very patiently explaining what happened to his arm. When Brenda Smith was home this summer, I told her I was going to do a story on Bob and Charlotte. As we age ourselves, we can see how very difficult life must have been for Bob because he had such a handicap. But he was not one to complain, but rather kept working hard each day. Correspondence. Mark Claypool said, "Jackie, I really don't know how you top each week, but you always do, and thank you once again." We also had several people comment about the testing of the new equipment. We hope you are enjoying our upgrades and also our few little problems we're having here. We are also interested in learning about historical English Valley's items that you might wish to donate to the History Center. Please contact Dave Jackson, Scott Romine, or any board member to donate. See you next week.
And that's a wrap. Thanks, Jackie.